I'm so happy to have all you guys here today. Many of you have been coming back week after week, and I think that's wonderful. And welcome to all the new people as well. You know, I really live by quotes. They're kind of my jam. I don't know if many of they are for you guys, but the moment that you feel too comfortable is when you failed. But you're all here tonight, so obviously you haven't, because we're going to get into the really important part. We've been talking about storytelling. We've been talking about how to tell your story and your to-do list. And tonight we're going to talk about how we take that storyline and put it into our resume. It kind of becomes our script for the story that we've been telling. So I want to go through with you guys tonight, and I really want you guys to ask me questions, because this is the time. How many of you obviously have a resume that you like? Let me put it out to everybody. You can put it in the chat. You can talk to me. How many people are happy with their resume right now and feel proud of sending it out or giving it to people? Rivka, maybe you can tell me if anybody asks you. Otherwise, I'm going to call people out. So Melanie, why don't we start with you? Do you like your resume? Do you feel proud of it? Does it tell me who you are?
Was not expecting that. So currently, my resume is definitely in need of an update, and there's definitely some things I've done since I last finished it. Some things I've been working on, some projects that need to be put onto it, and I was also planning on making it look a bit prettier in Canva or some system like that, but it definitely needs to be improved.
Excellent. Charlotte, let's ask you, how are you feeling about your resume? Is she on? I can't hear her.
I don't think Charlotte's on.
Different Charlotte.
Oh, okay, how about Libby?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty proud of my resume. I've been updating it since quarantine, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. I just started a new job though, so I kind of need to update my current job, like my current tasks that I do, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with it.
Oh, good. Nick, what do you feel about yours?
Hey, what's going on? So it's funny, we had this conversation last night, actually. We were talking about my resume. You know what? I think it's fine right now. It definitely needs some updating. There's some new things in there. I would like for my resume to sound a little more selfless and more along the lines of, okay, like you said, what can I do for others, instead of listing, any cool thing that I've done. Like, that's cool, but what can I do for others? I think that's the main thing that I want an updated resume to showcase.
That's excellent. That's exactly right. Do we have is Matthew here? No. All right.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hi, Matt. So are you happy with your resume?
I think it hits the check marks for it checks the boxes for what a career management someone would say it's a good resume, but I think it doesn't bring out my story at all. And I think really it's not something that would get me the job. It's just kind of meets the minimum requirements kind of thing.
Excellent. Guys, those were great answers. Great answers. And I tell you, this is exactly why we're here tonight, because we've talked about the story. It really is, when you realize it's kind of like a strategy, then you understand the makings of it. I think before we all sort of started to get together here on this webinar, it was like, oh, I got a resume, and if I meet somebody, I don't know what to say, and all of this. And I hope that you guys have really gotten out of these 3 weeks the idea that it really is a strategy. And that means that we pull some stories from your background, we role play them so you can tell those stories wonderfully and selflessly, and then the resume builds right into the story building. It used to be a time where you'd write your resume to go, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. But now resumes, as you can see here, can be branded. They need to be branded. Now, you brand them on different things that you're doing. If you're going for law, you're going for accounting, you're going for, those kinds of careers, there's actually a format to follow, which is just very black and white, maybe a hint of blue. You don't go too crazy. You go corporate, like, because those are the companies. However, in the music, in entertainment, in those kinds of areas, digital marketing, you want to show people what you can do. Now, I've had a client who had put his picture on. I didn't show that one. But pictures today, like a really nice headshot, I would say for people in music, you kind of want to show that vibe, that you're like a music guy, or you're an entertainment girl, or you're something like that. And there's nothing wrong with, if you look at this first name, last name resume, to put your picture up in the upper left-hand corner, or perhaps a little closer in the white, close to your name, it kind of identifies you. It shows, oh, he looks really nice, or she looks really nice. I'd like to meet somebody like that. Then you put your name, this, like the blue would, let's say, be more for a male, person. But you put your name, your address, your cell phone number, and an email. I like to put it up on top because the eye, there's actually a scientific thing to that the eye reads to the right. So I'm going to show you different things. But I also like to start with a goal summary, because whatever jobs, you want to let them know what the hell you're looking for. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's the first thing they read. If they go, oh, well, what she's looking for is nothing that I have, or anything that I have to offer him or her. But if you write in what it is you're looking for, like if we go to Sarah Hales, it's experienced in, endorsements and finalizing with the demonstrated history of working in the entertainment industry. And she goes on to talk about her skill sets. This is very interesting for her because she's a girl who went to Emory in mass communications, but came out and did 2 years of law and realized not for her. And so we had to actually rework her resume to go back into that mass communications thing, where she was actually able to get a job with a producer as a production coordinator, and then worked her way up. So we always want to start with professional summary, looking for, goal summary, some word that identifies what it is you're actually looking for. Now, you also might want to tweak that sometimes depending on the job that you're looking for. So you always want to identify the job that you're going for. And how you do that is, let's say on LinkedIn, or let's say on Glassdoor, or Handshake, if you're still in college, you look up, and where it says responsibilities, you want to look at that, look at all the responsibilities, and put those responsibilities into the goal summary. Is anybody laughing yet? Thank you. That's the way it works, kids, is that you actually look for each job you're going for, look at what the responsibilities are, and on your Word, before you put it into, change it up for your resume, put in those responsibilities. If you've done them, we don't want to be telling lies, but that's how. So instantly you can appreciate somebody, let's say on LinkedIn, who's looking for a job in production coordinator, and Sarah Hale goes, well, I did producing for this, I've done production coordinator for this, I've done this, but she looks at what they're looking for and puts all of that in there. The person that you're interviewing was like, oh my God, that's exactly what we're looking for. Now, he doesn't know that she looked on the thing and put that in there, but that's what you do. Then skills and strengths have become very important on the resume, even before you start to mention what your professional experience is. So again, with you guys, I would put things like, if you know Microsoft, or I don't even know all of those, but all the digital marketing lingo, all that kind of lingo is what they're looking for. Again, in the job interview, they will say that you need to have specific skills. Put them in there, or any certificates you've had, or, just things you're really proud of, you put in there. And that kind of comes from our to-do list. But if you've supervised, if you've done those goal setting, all of those kinds of words are very important. Speaking of that, in skills, goal setting, action plan, like they have here, produced, created, organized. Those are skills, soft and hard skills, you want to put in that section. Now for your professional experience. What you want to do in a professional experience is you start from where you're working now, down to what, like your first job was. Now, it gets a little tricky, right? So you want to put your title of what it is. And then on the right-hand side, typically, or underneath it, like Sarah did, you put the date of when you've worked. Now, in terms of the bullet, and then what I like, again, is because it goes back to your story, is underneath it, what that job in 2 or 3 sentences, a little story soundbite of what you did in that job. And then you go to the bullet points. Now you want to talk, again, captured, created, developed, organized. Those are the kind of words. I'm going to show you one in the next slide after we go through this, where you will see clearly what didn't work. But here you can see, you put your title, whatever your title was. Now again, I get a little creative on the title. I'm not saying somebody who's going to jail does, these kinds of things. I'm not going to name names. But, you may even realize in your story, like, you know what? I didn't just assist. I actually produced some of the things. And so you want to kind of look at that and brag about yourself, because this is your time to do so. Then, and by the way, everything should be, for all of you guys, should be on 1 page. Unless you've had 300 jobs, there is no reason to put it on 2 pages. Then you go to your education and you put your education. There you want to put your education, but if you've gotten not only, and if you feel proud about your GPA, go for it. If you don't, no one really gives a you-know-what today. They really don't care anymore. It's not about that. It's what you can do for them. So that doesn't really matter. But you want to put down certificates, or if you won awards, or if you were in a fraternity and you were the president of it. All of those bragging rights you put under education, for sure. As extracurricular, had a radio show, did this. Show them what you've done. Be proud of it. And then volunteer activity. Volunteering is really important. And I'll tell you a little story. I think I may have told it before, but I had a kid who had Tourette's, and he wanted to be a CPA. He wants to be in the top CPA in the country. He wanted to interview at all 4. So I set that up for him. And he was captain of his tennis team. So we kind of came up with a creative idea of why not go to all the local, he was up in Rhode Island, go to all the local accounting firms and banks and say that you're doing a charity, a tennis charity, raising money for Tourette's, and call it Account for Something. We just came up with the name, Account for Something, because he wanted to be an accountant. They did the thing. I think he raised like $10,000. He was able to put it in his resume. If I tell you, it didn't matter that the kid's GPA, it didn't matter what coursework he had taken, it didn't matter everything. Every single firm loved the idea that he started Account for Something and wanted to bring it into their company. So this is where you show off your thinking, your power of thinking and bringing an added value into the company. In addition, is there any questions that anybody has so far? Is it in the chat?
You guys can feel free to jump in and shout those out as well.
Think about your own resumes and ask me questions. If you have it now, should you take it out? Should you leave it in? These are really important, guys. And then going back to the Sarah Hale one, I love this because it's very branded. Red totally stands out. It shows passion. And your eye, and I love the shaded gray, so you can see her interests, her skills, her education, but then your eye goes right to, oh, this is what she's looking for, and this is what she's done to show that skill set. So it's very good. Mel, we can go to the next slide. The next resumes. Now this one, I have to say, I find fantastic. As you can see, this is a real branded resume. She's got her picture. It shows, that what a nice looking girl she is. She's got her skill sets, and just look how nicely it's organized. And you see there, conducted, assisted, created, developed, coordinated, gained, helped. Well, helped I would have changed a little bit, to be honest with you, with another word. Managed, These are all the words that are so important when somebody's looking at your resume. And then I love how she had it on the right side. So you could see this is a very branded, very interesting, shows a lot of, oomph into her resume. And her languages, if you have languages, that's very important, especially Spanish and bilingual. That's a very important skill set to have. And it's just very, it shows she wants to be in entertainment. It's very like black and white movie-esque kind of thing. And so and her contacts below, and this is just a great resume, a fantastic resume. Now I'll show you one that you don't want to do. Can we go to the next one, Mel? So this is somebody's resume, and I'm trying to get off, wait, hold on a second, because I'm trying to get off the hide. Okay, here we go. So here we've got, she has sat. Now, nobody cares if you sat in on a meeting, attended. I talked to her. She actually had done more. She didn't even realize it. So now she could put organized, general, these kinds of words, serviced, wrote. These are not words you want to use. Once you know your story, you can definitely start to elaborate on that and really bring more to focus. Like writing for a newspaper, if there's any journalists out there, there's so much more that you could write about that. Wrote and got published and edited stories. Words like that would make her Nassau Herald thing much more interesting. Also, the way she's got her dates, this just reads more like an obituary. Like, you don't need to put all of these dates. You just put, like, you don't have to put 9/25. You just put September 9th, 2015 present. Boom. You don't need to put it for each thing that you did. Her skills are great. Also, she attended 2 schools. So anybody out there who's attended 2 schools, you just go with the school that you're attending now, because it gets very confusing to people. Well, wait, she won an award at Indiana, but is she still there? Or, oh, but look she's at Wisconsin now. You don't want to confuse anybody. You want to just keep it very, like she goes to Wisconsin, she got on the dean's list. That's awesome. You want to talk. Sorority and fraternities are very big things. And there's so much you can do in that, or clubs, you want to put that forth. Again, she goes back to high school here. She's a junior. She's going into her junior year at college. Drop the high school stuff. You're no longer, even after your first year, no longer bring high school things into that. So you want to take all of that off. So I wanted to show you what you don't do. And we're starting to work on this resume now as well. And as we go, and we could go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about your cover letter, and before we get into networking. So your cover letter, again, in the first sentence, what you want to do is connect. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I've been connected to you by Debra Cooper, or Debra Cooper suggested I reach out to you, or Mike Myles suggested I reach out to you. If you've got a connection, use it in that first paragraph, because then somebody goes, oh, I got to be talking to this person, or I need to be talking to this person. The second paragraph is, I understand that you have a job, or I saw that you have a job. Put the link there. Put the link in. I saw this job. I would love to talk to you. Here's my skill set. And a little bit go into a story about it. I've been doing this. I've created this. I've got 200,000 followers on, Instagram, that I'd love to see how I could share that with your audience if it's a digital marketing company. Show your skills. I hear so much from kids, well, I don't want to ask, for myself, or that just seems so much. Here's a news flash. Getting a career is not too much. You deserve it. You've earned it. Go for it. So always go for the ask. That's what you're writing the cover letter for. You never want to write one with like, oh, so if you have some time, I thought maybe I could reach out to you. No, you saw the job on whatever site you saw it on. You've been recommended by somebody, and now you want to talk to them about the job. Go for it. Don't be afraid. And then networking. So now that you've got your resume, you've got your cover letter, you want to start to converse with people who can get you jobs. And here's some sites, guys, that I have found that have just been wonderful. Next Gen HQ is a great organization. And every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they have coffee chats. Super cool, super laid back, super fun. There's a guy who's got a podcast on there. There's people who are looking for digital marketing people. Also on their website below, they have a thing on opportunities. There are so many opportunities for jobs, for getting into startups. It's just a really cool thing, and they've got an opportunity board, and it's a great way to get involved. So every Wednesday, I just mark down and I go there and I talk to people. I go, hey, can I reach out to you? Or, hey, I've got somebody who would love to talk to you. Hey, yeah, have them talk to me. Guys, in this COVID time, it's like the playing field got leveled. And what I mean by that is just like in colleges, just like in careers, oh my God, I got to talk to so-and-so. Guess what? So-and-so is ready to talk to you because they're just sitting around, doing their job, but this is the time that they can do it with you. So now it's an even playing field. You can reach out, you can talk on a coffee chat and get a career going, or talk to somebody about how you can help them with their digital marketing, or create a song for them on their podcast. Then, of course, Global Angels, and I got to give a call out to Dan. This has been a wonderful thing. I just got, through Dan, a whole article on a lot of clients that I was working with, because during the COVID time, I got them involved through Dan for Senior Strong. It's a NYC. It's an organization that's helping the seniors in New York City and the surrounding boroughs to know about what they can do during this time to avoid loneliness and isolation. And a girl was a creative writer. She's written, somebody developed a website, and now they're getting recognition for it. Now they can put that on their resume, and when somebody asks what you do during the COVID, instead of saying I watched 10 episodes of Friends, which as we know is just always a great thing to do, you might not want to tell a potential employer you did that. By saying this is what I did during this time shows amazing initiative. For women, I've been involved with Femfessionals. Again, it's tribes. We're talking about tribes and communities in this new normal. They hire their own. This is where you get involved with that. Live Nation, as some of you have been on before, contact DeMarco White. Right now, a lot of things are on hold, but you know what? Create a conversation with them. Hey, DeMarco, I saw you on Debra's webinar. Just want to let you know what I'm doing. Want to know, love to keep in contact with you. Same with Daniel Kelly. He's the House of Blues music forward guy, and there's his email right there. Again, reach out to him. Senior Strong, maybe volunteering now, getting an internship if this is something that you're interested in about giving back. Maybe you're a musician. You want to do their music for their website, and then you could put that on your resume. Is great. And then Hospitality Excellence is Roberta Nedry, and she deals with the whole hospitality industry, and she can help you with different things that you might be interested as well. Those are just a few networking things. I'm sure you can find your own, but this is the time to have the conversation. And speaking of conversations, you guys are in for a treat, because Rivka is going to introduce my guest tonight, who is just an amazing guy with an amazing story. So I hope you enjoy, but here is a good friend of mine, Mike Myles, and Rivka will do the intro.
Awesome. All right, you guys, this is very exciting. Mike Myles, creative services, content producing, innovation, strategy, and operations. His passion for creating quality content led him to build, grow, and oversee the video department for CBS Interactive for over a decade, where his team created and produced tentpole original content such as The Survivor, Big Brother, and The Amazing Race after shows, as well as the companion content to the entire CBS roster of shows, including The Good Wife, The Big Bang Theory, and NCIS franchise. Additionally, Mike created and produced original, branded, and social media content for specials like the Grammy Awards, Academy of Country Music Awards, and the Victoria's Secret fashion shows. So welcome, Mike.
Amazing. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you all for having me. This is really, really cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So Mike, what, your background, and for all the kids that are on tonight are just so lucky to be talking to you. I mean, like, I want to bow down.
No, I'm grateful. Every time I talk to young people now, I learn something and I get inspired all over again. There's so many things that I've forgotten along the way because I'm old. And so I get to learn things through fresh eyes. So this is exciting. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, you know what? Why don't we use those fresh eyes to go back into your time capsule, if you will, in your journey. And why don't you tell everybody out there how you kind of began from college, or what you kind of knew as a young person that maybe this is something you wanted to do, or where your journey took us?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I was younger, I think I felt more insecure about my resume because it has a lot of zigs and zags. But the older I've gotten and the more creative people that I've been exposed to, I realize that this is a common theme. And I think it actually makes for a more interesting life and hopefully a more well-rounded person as well. But I guess my origin story, I grew up in San Diego. I'm in Los Angeles right now. And, what the things that I'm doing now, I guess I can point back to 1977 when I first saw Star Wars. And I was 11 years old. And I didn't know what I was watching, but it blew my mind. And all I knew is that I wanted to be part of the industry that made people feel the way that Star Wars made me feel when I was 11. And at first I thought I wanted to be an astronaut. And I actually applied to NASA and I got a rejection letter when I was 12. And it turns out too that I'm very bad at math and I don't like heights. So I probably would not make a very good astronaut. But of course I'm 11 and, I see people flying through space and I'm like, okay, I want to do that. You're like, no. I want to tell the stories that make people feel. And I realize that storytelling is a medium that makes people feel amazing feelings. And so, I started out DJing parties because I didn't get invited to the cool parties. So I thought if I DJ'd, they could hire me to go to the cool parties. So I get to go and then I would get paid to go. And then that led to an internship at a radio station. And that led to my interest in taking broadcast courses. And that led to actually applying to film school. And because my grades were so bad, I got turned down. So before there was Google, there were Yellow Pages. So I went home and I opened the Yellow Pages to V for video. And I just started calling every company to ask them if they wanted a free intern. And I got to the T's, a company called Teleview. They make videos for hotels. And they said, yeah, come on down. Can you come down next Tuesday? And I put on a tie, brought my resume, and I went down there. And I got brought on as an intern. And luckily the guy who was interning for taught me so much, was so patient. And so I realized that I wanted to work in this industry. And I realized that because I didn't have good grades, I was just gonna have to find another way to do it. So I did through internships and internships and internships until I finally started getting hired more and more and more. And graduated from San Diego State with a degree in liberal studies, which was really just kind of the fastest way out. But I wanted a degree, it was important to me. Now, I wouldn't say you necessarily need that, but to be in the industry. And then I feel like and I think this is important for a lot of people, I outgrew the opportunities in San Diego. And so that is what kind of compelled me to move to Los Angeles. Because I think as you want to grow in your career, there is something to be said for putting yourself in the proximity of the opportunities. And so I learned that, and interestingly enough, probably my first steady job was in audio. And so I've always had this ability to kind of toggle between audio and video. And I think that that's the technical side of my brain. I'm a systems thinker, but I'm also a creative as well. And sorry, Deborah, I can go on and on. So cut me short if you want to dive in.
I wanted to ask you a question while you're at what age did you start doing internships? Like when you got into college, or were you doing them before? Or
I started in college, and if I had my act together, I probably would have started before. But I didn't know what I wanted to do really before. you know, it didn't all really sink in. And so I was a very kind of, I think it's a classic story for creative people until they kind of find that thing that really sparks them, you know, they're just kind of bumping along. So, and that's okay too. Like it's, as long as you keep bumping along, you know, eventually you'll bump into your spark, that thing. It's the creatives that stay stagnant that are kind of doomed. So if you don't know what you want to do yet, just keep moving forward. Try everything. Eventually something's going to stick. You're going to fall in love with it. Yeah, so my first, I guess, steady job, real job in LA was working on Rugrats. I did all the...
That was your first job?
Yeah, I did all the... because I have a technical mind, they had just... at the time, there was this software called Pro Tools, which is kind of the leading sound editing, recording, mixing program that musicians, everybody uses it. And that animation studio... actually, let me tie this together to what we're talking about today. They had just upgraded to Pro Tools. Pro Tools had just come out and it was very expensive at the time. And a friend of mine that I went to college with, he did an internship there.
Yeah.
And they hired him. They hired him to work nights. And he told me, hey man, I know that they're gonna get real busy and they're gonna need more people who know this program, and not a lot of people know it. So if you wanna come in with me at night, which I did, and I read the manual from cover to cover, and I taught myself Pro Tools between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. because when you're hungry, you'll do anything. And they did. Within a few months, they needed to hire another person, and he was like, I got this friend. He knows the program. He's ready to go. And the first 8 months, I worked the night shift, which sucked, but you know, what do? That's your way in, you're gonna do it. And then they moved me to days because I started doing all the recording sessions with the actors and editing all the dialogue. And
were you loving this job, Mike? Were you thinking you hit pay dirt? I mean, Rugrats right off the bat was like so famous. Like at cocktail parties, you must have been like, cool. Like now you're cool. Like now you don't.
You know,
like
I was super cool with my nephews and nieces, but my like peers, they were like, aren't you making movies yet? You know, and I'm like, I don't know, like I'm paying my bills, like, and I'm having a good time because it was a lot of fun. And we did all these other animated shows like Real Monsters, As Told by Ginger, Wild Thornberries, Duckman. So it was the animation studio that did all those. And funny enough, the owner of that studio, he loved music. So he would sign, he had his own independent label, which was, you know, and so he would bring in musicians at night and ask us if we would want to stick around and record bands. And so I got to kind of dip my toe into music recording and mixing. And right around that time in '99, on a 14.4 dial-up modem, I downloaded my first MP3 file, which probably took like all day. And as soon as I downloaded that file and I opened it, I knew the world of music was about to change. And at the time, there were two big companies that were trading headlines. It was Napster, which was kind of, it was the illegal, you know, peer-to-peer file sharing. And then there was mp3.com, which was trying to be the legitimate legal version of Napster. And mp3.com was still very new at the time. And the CEO had a blog. And it was a small company. They had not gone public yet. And at the end of the blog, he put his email on there. He's like, tell me what you think. And he was just kind of making comments about the industry. So I started emailing him every week. I was just emailing him like, I think this is amazing. This is awesome. I totally get it. I'm in the digital space early on and I can see where this is all going. And I just, you know, I don't think I was stalking him, but I literally sent him an email at least once a week. And so he replied to me after several weeks and he said, hey, if you'd ever like to take a tour of our offices, let me know. I'd love to show you around. And I was like, I'll call in sick next week. I'm there. Oddly enough, they were back down in San Diego where I was originally from. And so I drove down there, he gave me a tour and I just came in with just big energy and enthusiasm because I really did see how this was going to change the music world to digital downloads. And I could see where that was going. And we ended up just geeking out and having like a 2 or 3 hour conversation. And I was like, man, I would love to come build a studio and we could do amazing things. And he was like, yeah. And we were just riffing and going off. And so I kept emailing him for probably another 6 or 8 weeks, and he called me up out of the blue one day, and he's like, "So do you want to work here?" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "When can you start?" So yeah, I gave notice to the world of Rugrats, and I went to MP3 to be part of the digital music revolution in '99, 2000. And it was the highest of highs and the lowest of lows because the company went public. I was one of those .com millionaires on paper, and the record labels were so freaked out by everything that was happening because it was moving so much faster than they were, and the business models were changing so fast that they just sued everybody as a business practice who was coming up with anything that they weren't doing. So we got caught up in that, and we went from having the most successful IPO in the .com era to our doors getting padlocked. And I think I moved back to LA with my tail between my legs, and it was a good lesson on entertainment business, on intellectual property. It was also a good lesson on, I guess, failure, and picking myself back up again. And like, you know, that all happened because I chased a passion and a dream. And here I am, you know, 20 years later, and I don't regret it, and I loved every minute of it. And it was messy and brutal and hard, and I cried and I kicked and screamed, but it was the most amazing experience of my life. And but I still loved, you know, there's this common theme. Sorry to just, please interrupt me at any time too, or if anybody has any questions. But I loved, I've always had this love of technology and storytelling. And that's the common theme. Because I started looking at video games, and at the time, video games were kind of starting to merge more with Hollywood. And every time a movie came out, you saw a companion video game. And I really loved kind of the immersive storytelling of video games. And so I thought, well, that's what I'll do next. I'll go kind of leverage my experience in sound and go talk to some gaming companies and share my passion of immersive storytelling. I don't have the design capabilities. That's just not my wheelhouse, but I do have this audio capabilities to pair with their cool design and game stuff. So I ended up, I interviewed with a lot of companies. I got rejected by Sony, and I ended up getting hired by Electronic Arts. And I worked at EA here in Los Angeles for about 2 years. And I worked there long enough to realize I'm not built to work in games. I love games, I play games, but it's not for me. And I learned something there that as much as I love technology and storytelling, the craft of making games, you have to go through programmers, because ultimately that story has to get built and integrated into the game. And that is only done through programmers. And I felt so removed by the creative process. And it wasn't that I didn't like working with programmers. They were super creative people also. But I just felt like I couldn't touch it. I couldn't be on set. I couldn't be in the room with a musician or an act. Like, I just felt detached. So I think that's what it was. But through that time, I started revisiting video, because I realized, I hadn't kept up with that. So I started acquiring my own video equipment, shooting things for free, just to kind of get those skill sets back up again, start to build a reel for myself where I could go around and talk to people and they would take me seriously. And I started applying for video jobs while I was still at Electronic Arts. And I ended up getting a call back from CBS. And it was interesting. And I'll tell you, because I think this is another huge learning moment for me, was, you know, they were still very, well, I always joke, like, CBS is your grandparents' network. And at the time, they had just, you know, they'd only had CBS.com, their digital website, for, I don't know, a year or two, maybe 3. And they wanted to start doing more audio video stuff, but they hadn't really. And it was astounding to me that a broadcast network wasn't really in the digital space. And so, you know, again, that passion for technology and that passion for storytelling, I was like, yes, I can help build this, you know, with you guys. And so I actually got hired as a shooter editor, first and foremost. And I was still leveraging this kind of technology skill set that I have of production and because my background is so production heavy. And through, there's a couple things, because I want to talk about that journey, because it's an interesting arc, at least to me. But I'm not sure if you've covered this already in your webinars, but you know, the guy who I ended up interviewing with at CBS, the guy who got my resume, who was the operations guy for digital at the time, it turns out, you know, we did a phone interview, and then out of the blue at the end, he's like, hey, let me ask you, were you in New York like 6 or 7 years ago in the wintertime? And at the time, my wife now, she lived there, and we were long distance dating. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But I was like, he goes, apparently we shared a cab from the airport into the city. And he remembered me. He got my resume. He remembered seeing Rugrats. He remembered we talked about animation. He talked about that he had a friend that wanted to get into doing music for animation. He asked if he could connect me with his friend. And I do recall talking with his friend on the phone and connecting him with some other people. And so he was like, I remember you. And I was like, oh my God, please don't take this the wrong way. I have zero recollection of this conversation. I hope I was nice to you. And he was like, no, you were amazing. He goes, I remember you. When I saw Rugrats on your resume, your name rang a bell. And
That's
the reason why, and I got hired because of that cab ride 7 or 8 years. So exactly what you were saying earlier, like I still use that as to remind myself, like, you never know who you're talking to. And that person who may not be able to help you today might be your boss in 6 or 7 years from now. It might be the person getting your resume. So I use that, like, be nice to everybody.
That's an amazing. Well, it's not only being nice to people, it's making that connection. You know, it's talking about things that are mutually interested, that you were bringing interesting conversation to the guy. I'm sure he had 4 million other conversations besides you in the 7 years that, you know, it happened in New York. But you must have touched him in a way. And what I've been explaining to everybody as well is you made him feel. You made him feel. And that separates you from the pack. Yes, exactly. And I was, thank you. Yes, I take that with me now every day in this industry. And I realized too that, you know, it wasn't what I could get from him, it was what I could give him. And what I could give him was a conversation with his childhood friend. And that, you know, that made him feel good. And so I think in terms of when you were talking about networking, you know, we all want things for our careers but I try to approach every conversation like, what can I offer? What can I give? Because when we want, we're coming from a place of lack and scarcity, and we're coming from a place that, like, you have something I don't have, and there's like a weird, I don't want to say power dynamic, but it's when you go to networking events and you feel like all awkward and weird, it's because you're looking at all these people in the room like they all have something that I want, and like instead of going in and saying, well, I have something to offer, and taking an inventory of what you have to offer and share that, and it's pretty amazing what you see, how it comes back. But in my time at CBS, it's interesting. I never set out to like start a department. I started out to just make great content and tell great stories. And as the shooter editor getting thrown into the situations, I kept realizing that I was an afterthought, and that if I was going to do a better job at making great content and telling great stories, I had to move upstream in the conversation. I had to be in the room when those things were being planned. Mm-hmm. And so I had to, and that took a while, and I had to be patient, and I had to kind of be very respectful of this environment. It took a few years. But then when I got in the room, as much as I think I was a good sound editor on animation, or a good music recording engineer, or good with audio and video games, or shooter editor, I think I discovered my superpower in that situation. And it wasn't even anything like I was looking for. I thought I was kind of in my sweet spot, but I realized that I have this ability to
kind of balance between the technical teams that are making things, because I know how things are made, I know how stories are told, so I know how to talk with them. And I also have great empathy for the executives whose butts are on the line when they greenlight a lot of money and they're entrusting it to me to make sure it comes out good. And so they need their reassurances, and the creative team needs their space to do their best work. And I realized by inserting myself into that, because there just wasn't anybody there, it was out of necessity, that's where I think my superpower lies, is kind of striking the balance between that right brain and left brain. And it's interesting, as I leaned into that more and more, I was astounded by how many more opportunities I was given, how much more trust I was given. Because when that light bulb went up for me, I'm like, I need to do more of this. I think I'm good at this. And I didn't assess that I was good at it. I had other people telling me that I was good at it from the executive ranks.
Too.
Yeah, well, after a while, you kind of have to start listening to the people around you, the voices in your head that tear you down, as every creative will attest to. Like, you kind of have to listen to the point of like, hey, you're really good at this. Like, you should do more of it. I'm like, oh, okay, if you say so. But yeah, that allowed me to do the first ever live stream for CBS. It allowed me to do all their like live from the red carpet stuff, or branded campaigns, working with sales. Like, after a while, it just kind of became this game of like, how far can I take this? And I took it pretty far, and it was a lot of fun. And I worked my tail off, and I loved every minute of it. And after about 12 years, I felt like I took it as far as I could. And so I decided to leave to go out on my own, because if I could do it for CBS, I wanted to see how many other companies I could do it for. And so the last few years, I've just been meeting with so many different companies, from HBO to AT&T, and I don't know, I don't want to name drop, but the weirdest
name dropping.
well, like Ron Howard and Brian Grazer's team.
Cool.
The strangest or most interesting, unique one was I'm the North American producer for the largest streaming platform in China, and called iQIYI. And I produced a bunch of shows for them, and I never saw that coming. But apparently, working with that culture requires a high level of diplomacy, which is something
very different.
I tuned up in my days at CBS. And then it's led me to a lot of colleges where I've got to be on the steering committee to help design curriculums to make sure they're in sync with the industry. So that's kind of that's a long story, and there's a lot of highs and lows in there, a lot of zigs and zags, but yeah, I'm always about moving forward and making things better. And if I'm in an environment or a job or a project where I can't make something better, maybe we get it to a place, and that's kind of what happened at CBS. It got to a place where there's just nothing I could do there else to make better. Right. And so that has, as I've grown in my career, that's kind of my mantra. And that could be the people, the team, the equipment, projects, to just always strive to make things better. And that's how I like to try to contribute. And through that process, I've had just the most inspiring and amazing experiences and jobs. But it has always been from a place of making things better, whether it was bringing digital workflows to animation, to helping to move the digital download revolution in the music industry forward, whether it was immersive technologies for video games, or bringing your grandparents' network into the digital world.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really revolutionizing. I mean, you were kind of a pioneer in so many of these mediums. It's so cool. And to find yourself in them and moving them forward is just the best feeling. I kind of see you as this like little engine that just was in these places driving these things, and then just kind of moving on to the next thing because you just had it in you, which I think so many of our kids on this webinar today have. They're so amazing. And they just, like what you were saying though, I think we've got to like push out that negative thing in our heads that we can't do it and be the little engine that could, because you can and you should. And you got the, you got the gravy train, to go to the gravy train kind of thing, like you did. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I met resistance along the way. Resistance meaning like nobody, every no that I got frustrated the hell out of me, but it just added fuel to the fire. And so as I've gotten older, I've become oddly grateful for all the no's and the rejections, because I'm like, you know what, this is possible. This is doable. I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a way. And sometimes you have to move at other people's pace and not the pace that you want to. But I always feel like as long as we're moving in the right direction, I'm okay sometimes going fast and sometimes going slow.
Right.
But yeah, I think
That's
when
awesome.
you kind of own those parts of yourself,
That's right.
and you own them more fully, and it took me a while to learn to do that. It's crazy the opportunities that started to show up for me as I started to show up for myself. And I don't know, it's really cool to see. I try to help young people find that in themselves, because I probably didn't discover it myself until my 30s, mid-30s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, please don't wait till your mid-30s to discover the things. Like, if I can help you find it in your 20s and you'll be like 10 years ahead of me, I would love that.
Well, you know what, Mike, you just bring up a really good point, and maybe Rivka can ask. I'm sure all of you guys have questions for Mike in your journeys of what you're going through. So please ask Mike whatever questions you might have right now. Are there some in the chat box, Rivka?
Don't have any in the chat box, but if you guys want to throw them into the chat box, I can ask them, or again, feel free to turn on your camera or just use your audio. But yeah, this is a great opportunity.
This is my messy office in the spirit of being authentic. You can turn your cameras on. You're amongst friends. So
exactly. Matthew, wonderful to have you on.
Hey.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Mike. I kind of had a question. I was listening, first off, like your whole story, you're an amazing storyteller. Like, I pretty much saw the movie like flying through my head the entire way, and I can like relate in a lot of ways. I started in the audio side as a musician, and like learning not Pro Tools, but it was like GarageBand, and then into Logic.
Yeah.
And then I went to university for business school, because I wasn't really sure in terms of my career, like what to do, but I knew that I needed to follow the money at least. So, get a basic business foundation. Just finished up college now, and I'm realizing I want to go back into the storytelling aspect. And while I was in university, I kind of took a break from the music side, but I really jumped into photo and a little bit of video as well. And so now here I am at the end of university, looking to get into filmmaking, looking to go more in depth on the technical side on music production and music writing, but also trying to figure out, somehow I'm going to have to find some sort of job. But one thing that I've kind of been facing as a challenge, and I'm sure that you can probably relate, is that sometimes I felt like I got stuck. I didn't know how to get better on the technical side. And, listening to your story, the answer I can almost hear is like, you should reach out and ask for help. And I was kind of curious if you could tell me a little bit more about those experiences. Like you talked about, at Rugrats, you had that friend that really taught you Pro Tools at the start, but and then it's funny because like when I'm asking this question, your story is almost answering it to me, because then you talked about how it's all about seeing what you can give back to other people, right, in order to build those really good relationships and get that mentorship. But maybe even more, if you could just talk about some of the difficulties and the challenges that you had to face and how you got through them.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for sharing so much of that too. And it's, look, like the journey is real. So I'm with you. And let's see, where do I start? I'm a huge fan of internships. I think it's a great way to show your value without, a lot of companies like, well, we're not hiring right now. You're like, no problem. I don't care. Like, I just want to come in and work for free. And then they go, oh, you're really awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's find a job for you. Yeah. In fact, there's a great recording engineer, since you're into music. His name is Leslie Brathwaite. He does all of Cardi B's stuff. He's done TLC. He's got almost 25 Grammys, I think. He said his first job, he's in Atlanta. His first job, he said, or internship, I should say, was at a recording studio. And his big break that he talks about was the guy he was just about to interview with for this internship. He overheard him venting to his colleague that there was a big storage room that needed to be cleaned, and that he didn't want to have to come in on the weekend to do it. And so Leslie told me this story, that when he went in and sat down for his interview, the first thing he said is, "I'll do it." And the guy was like, you don't mind coming in and cleaning this?" He's like, "Nope, I'll do it." And then and then he got the internship, he got hired, and he's got like 25 Grammys. So I'm a huge fan of mentors, internships. I'm also a huge fan in, I don't want to say fake it till you make it. I'm just like, put yourself into the situation, you know? I continue to try to put myself, if I'm afraid, if I'm a little scared, I'm probably in the right place. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel good. There's a certain anxiety that comes with it. But if you're a little scared, that's good. So if you go after an internship, you know, go after at a place that's, you're going to put yourself in. It's like with Rugrats. Like, I remember that first recording session, I was freaking out that I'm like, I really hope I don't screw this up. And a couple times I did, you know, but they, you know, I don't think I got close to getting fired, but you know, I went and talked to the producer a couple times and apologized. I'm like, I'll get better. I'll come in. I was like, so I didn't, but you know, the recording industry is going through an interesting renaissance right now with podcasts. And podcasts needs music. They need music. They need scores. They need compositions. Spotify is killing it. Not so much on the artist side. I think you need about 350,000 plays to just make minimum wage per month. So not so much if you're an artist, but they're hiring like crazy. And what's interesting on the TV side is TV and the other streaming platforms, because of the popularity of podcasts, they're developing podcasts to help build an audience. It's a low-cost way to develop a great audience and community and test something to see if it works. And if it does build an audience and a community, they'll elevate it into a show and develop it into a show. So it's almost like the new development department for a lot of these streaming platforms and TV networks.
Can I just tell you something, Matthew? My thing back here is, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
I wrote that down in my notes.
Yeah, I live on that every day, because it just kind of hacks your brain to go, you know what? Yeah, I'm not afraid of your dream. I'm going to, you know, it's so important, guys. I love that. So, you know, Mike, I want to ask a question on behalf of Matthew, too. I don't know, Matthew, but I know. Yeah,
can I just add to that really quick, Debra? Sorry to jump in, but I was going to say, like, I've always told myself, like, if I'm going to fail, I want to fail big. I want to fail big and miserably. Like, there's no point in failing small when there's no one around to see it. That means I wasn't pushing myself hard enough or high enough. Like, if I'm going to fail, man, I want to fail because I'm not going to fail. I won't let myself do it. Like, when you're doing like live from the Grammys, you're like, no, we're going to have a 200-person team. We're going to test it and rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it, because I'm not going to fail. But that's the kind of stage I want to be on if I'm going to fail.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I could just, guys, can you not like feel that, like at the Grammy Awards, you rehearse, and then like what Lady Gaga like slips on her meat skirt. You know what I mean? There's no calling for that. I love that. I love that. But you know, Mike, you brought up a good point. This is for you, Matthew, and you live it, like all of you guys. You know, so many of these kids, I think, are developing their own things. So that was interesting about Spotify. If they were to write or say, I've developed this, or I have this, you know, when you're saying about development, are they open to these kinds of kids to come in? You know, if the opportunity was there to say, hey, I've got something I'm not seeing that you guys, kind of like how you did, Mike. I've got something you may be interested in. Is there a way of opening that door, or?
for the bigger companies, they're almost kind of going the way of like a television network now, like a Spotify. Like you almost need an agent to go in and pitch, you know, a concept.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of smaller companies that you can network your way in and pitch, you know. But, you know, Matthew, you said something that really stuck, and you said you were a storyteller. And I love that. And I think in terms of like, what are the core things about me? Because we're in this time of like so many platforms. Like I'm still trying to get up to speed on TikTok. Like my wife loves it. She's addicted. I'm not quite there yet. But I recognize that every one of these platforms, whether it's a 6-second video or whether it's a photo or a meme on Instagram or a video or a full-length movie, it's a story. There's a story element in it. And so I try to challenge myself to remove the notion of what the medium is, and that in every frame there is a story to be told. Like you said, you're into photography, so I'm sure your eye is gravitating towards capturing that moment to tell a story. So if you're a storyteller, remove the boundaries and barriers of platforms, and like put your passion, if it's a podcast or even a song, if you're recording and writing a song and mixing it, it is a story. So come from that love of story, and maybe be less picky about where you place it. If you have a passion for gaming one day, or I don't know, just follow that interest to whatever platform, but it's all story.
Thanks so much, Mike. That's really helpful.
Libby, do you have something to say?
I do. I wanted to ask
Libby.
a question. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi.
I wanted to ask, because you said you live in LA, and of course, like a bunch of influencers, celebrities live in LA now. Would you suggest LA, New York are the best places to go, even now after COVID, that everything's moved to remote work? Because I grew up in the Midwest. I moved to Orlando. I'm attending school here, and it's a big entertainment industry, but with theme parks.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do more video production. I know, like with Matthew, we've like shared before that we have similar interests, career paths. But would you say LA?
What school are you attending in Orlando?
I go to UCF.
Okay.
My
Great.
major is entertainment management, and I'm minoring
Nice.
in mass media. So I know there's
That's
a lot
awesome.
of entertainment opportunity, but a lot of it's geared towards theme parks or live productions, where I'm more, you know, video production and not live events. So.
Right. I'm very familiar with Orlando. I do. I'm on the steering committee with Full Sail down in Orlando.
Yeah.
So I'm down there quite a bit. And yeah, there's a pretty strong entertainment community in Orlando.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the people that graduate from Full Sail will go to Atlanta, because it's kind of a hop, skip, and a jump. And you have Tyler Perry Studios there. And, you know, it is a hub of some sorts. I do think, kind of going back to the top, like you do have to place yourself in the proximity of the types of things that you want to do. People, there's too much competition in LA, and probably New York too, for them to, like, you know, take a chance on somebody like hiring you remotely. So they kind of want to know you're here. And, you know, San Diego is only 2 hours away from LA. It's not like when I graduated, I thought I want to move to LA. I did the things in San Diego that I wanted to do. And then I started realizing I had outgrown San Diego. So, you know, some people, I do know students that have graduated from school in Orlando, and 3 months later, they're coming out to LA. I kind of have a plan that I can suggest for that. And then I know some people who stay in Orlando, like, I'm going to work here for a year, maybe 2, and then come to LA, like get some experience here.
Or how about a company, Mike, that like, and I know this has happened for me, or where there's a company in Orlando, but they've got satellite offices, or they work with LA, New York, Atlanta, whatever. So you start in the hub where you are, knowing they've got arms and offices in those places. You show your stuff, and before you know it, they've relocated you.
Yes.
Does that still happen?
That works, yeah. Yep. I know a super bright young guy. He graduated from Orlando, went to Miami, did an internship for HBO in Miami, and then came out to LA and then worked at HBO out here in LA.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I know NBC's here in Orlando, so that's kind of what I thought of too. I did work for Cox Media also,
Oh yeah.
so that was helpful in radio. And I know they also have TV stations, so I know they have TV in Orlando also. But yeah.
When do you graduate?
I actually graduate in spring of 2021. So
Okay,
I
perfect.
like a year, or yeah.
That's perfect. All this stuff will blow over by then. Everybody will be back to work, so that's perfect timing.
Exactly. Libby, for you, I would say that, you know, working for Cox, maybe try to get yourself kind of like Mike's story, like get into the television thing if you can, or show what you can do, get into their Cox, then move out to, it's just, again, guys, it's all a strategy. You know what I mean? Put a little action plan together and work it. You know, work
I do think for, you know, the first, I think that there's a lot you can do from there, whether you pick LA or wherever, whatever city. I think you can start networking and connecting with people remotely, and setting up like informational calls and getting to know people, which I highly, highly encourage anyone looking to move to a new city. And that way, and then I always, if you have the means, you're able to come out to LA first. Make sure it's a place, you know, try to like Airbnb it, hang out for a week, make sure it's a place that you like. Try to have coffee with those people that you've been networking with remotely, just so they get to know you, and then go back home. And if you fell in love with it, you know, send your thank you notes to all those people. I would even suggest like taking a few more months, planning another trip. And the second trip is actually intended to like figure out where you want to live. And on that second trip, if you can, have coffee again with all those people you met the first time, and have the first coffee with all the next round of people that you've met now new. And that way, when you finally do move, you kind of have a network already built here, and you're hitting everybody up like, hey, it's Libby, remember me? Remember how I said I wanted to move to LA? Well, I did it. Like, I would love it. And they're like, oh my God. Like, everybody's going to be like, right on. Because the cool thing about LA is like most people are from somewhere else here. And so everybody knows that feeling of like when I came here, my friend was cool enough to let me sleep in a sleeping bag on the floor of his apartment for the first, I don't know, probably year until I could get my act together. But I'm just kind of saying to all of you, if the goal is to like move to another city, feel more empowered than you probably feel right now, because there's actually a lot of networking you can do remotely. And I think you were talking about this earlier, Debra, like especially during this time of COVID, we're all just sitting around.
Milk it.
Yeah.
You know what? And going back to that, Libby, I had a client one time that she was speaking to the HR person at CMA, and they just like kind of hit it off. You know, it was like, hey, I'd love to take you for coffee. They go to like Pete's Coffee, you know, on Ventura, hung out. They personally like kind of fell in love just because they were vibing out. And you know, the HR person, the job came up. Who was the first person she called? It's exactly what Mike said. She called up Sophia. Said, Sophia, there's a job opening. I'm like sending you in. And the HR person spoke to the person, said, I've been speaking to this girl. I've been hanging with her. She's amazing. She offers this. Boom.
Yep. I know the VP of HR for NBC. So if you see a job at NBC there, let me know. And what's weird is like he worked at CBS, and I found out that he was a hip hop dancer. And I was like, what? And I found this out through the grapevine. Then I went into his office and I knocked on the door. I'm like, are you really a hip hop dancer? And like, he kind of wanted to keep it on the down low because he's like HR and he's got to be all stuffy. And he just came alive. And I just sat down, I'm like, dude, tell me everything about hip hop dancing. This is insane. And so we hit it off, and we've been friends for many years.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's so cool. Like, what?
It's like you guys are listening to Mike, and I hope that you get inspired by this. You be your authentic selves. You don't need to put on airs. Just be who you guys are. I mean, just in the weeks that I've been spending with you guys, like I feel sad. I feel like we should do a kumbaya by the fireplace right now.
Exactly what you're saying. Like, and so you guys too, like, I hate networking. I hate it. And what does that mean? That means like, I don't go around through LA trying to like see what I can get from people. Like, to your point, like, I'm just authentically Mike. like the things that I'm interested in, I get excited about, and I'm not afraid to share or show that excitement. And part of being authentic too means like, not everybody's gonna like me, you know, and like learning to be okay with that. Like, I hope they do, but if we don't gel, or like, I don't know, if you thought La La Land was a horrible movie and I liked it and we're talking at a barbecue, okay, we're probably not going to be friends, whatever. Like, it's, you know, using TV and film, especially in LA, it's such a great device to find out who people are. Like, hey, seen any good movies lately? You know, what are you binge watching now? And then we just strike up a conversation about that. You're like, oh, what do you like about that? And they're like, oh, I love the cinematography. Like, oh, are you a camera operator? Like, oh yeah, I am. Like, that's amazing. What do you think about the framing? Like, you just start asking, you know, or Matthew, like, you could talk about the music or the,
La La Land,
what'd you like about the
movie. Amazing
movie? What's that?
La La Land, amazing movie. Visuals and the music is just perfect.
Yeah, I loved it. But some people like don't like it, you know, whatever. I don't know. I just use that as a good example of
You just walk away and go, I got to get another drink.
yeah, exactly.
That's
like,
you just go,
okay.
oh, I'm out.
yeah. And it's not something I do when I'm needing a job or needing something. Like, it's something I do all the time. And so don't think like I have to network to get this. Like, just start being open. The best way to be open is take an inventory of things that you're excited about. You know, maybe you just saw a movie or whatever. Strike up a conversation about what other people are excited about. If it's meant to kind of evolve, it typically does. So you don't have to like carry this weight around you. Like, oh, I have to get their business card. Like, I don't want people's business card. I'm not gonna like, we're either gonna click and I'm gonna go, oh, let's, you know, connect on social right now, or we're not. And it's, but it's kind of a way of thinking and a way of approaching just the world around us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's how we met, actually, Deborah. Yeah.
That's right. It was the same thing. Oh my God. Yeah. We just like fell in, it's like that. But it's
just so you guys know, because actually maybe this is a good example. I saw Deborah speak on your House of Blues panel. And I have a friend who works at House of Blues. So I was watching your panel that day and I loved what you were saying. And I sent Deborah an email on LinkedIn. And I said, I just got done watching your panel. I really love what you talked about, and your emphasis on story really resonates how I think and feel. And I just wanted to tell you that I loved it. And Deborah wrote me back probably within, I don't know, an hour and said, thank you so much. It was so much fun to do. Here's my number if you'd like to schedule a call. And I said, I would absolutely love to schedule a call. And here I am talking with you guys. And all I did was I just shared from a place of enthusiasm her appearance on the panel.
And so, you know, it's so true, Mike. That's so great that you said it, because I got to tell you guys, again, it's what we talked about earlier on with the resume. I get so many things from LinkedIn, and honestly, the messaging in it and the narrative in it and where people are coming from, I have zero interest in, because it's not coming from a place like Mike did. It was like, hey, really love what you did. I was like, this guy sounds cool. Like, he's just somebody I'd want to be friends with. I didn't know what he wanted or what I could, you know, it wasn't like that. It was just genuine. Whereas other people like, I think that I'd like to talk to you about, it's like, I don't give a shit. Oh,
yeah.
But I'll edit. But you know what I mean? Like, no, just come at me real. And young people like you guys, if you can get what Mike and I are saying tonight and bring that forth, you will set yourself apart from everybody else out there. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I remember, let's see, about a year and a half ago, I was in a pitch meeting with AT&T, and I was pitching some show concepts that I developed. And the executive that I was pitching, it looked like he was very busy that day. I probably caught him on the wrong day. He was racing from, he showed up a little late to the meeting. I don't even think he set his laptop down. He was just kind of holding it. And I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, he's just so not into this discussion right now. And I just kind of read the room in that moment. And so I started kind of getting into my ideas and my concepts. And then I started, and I realized that he was just having maybe a bad day or an off day. And I just called it out. And I just said, hey, like, you know, I'm not here to sell you anything you don't need or want. Like, I'm here to be a thought partner to you and bring some creative concepts. And, but if I've caught you on a bad day, or the most we're ever going to become from this is just friends on LinkedIn, like, I'm okay with that too. And then he just like exhaled, and he was like, I'm sorry, I'm just having a really bad day. I'm like, I know, man, I can tell. And we can reschedule this, or we could not do it at all. Like, I just want to help your organization develop better concepts. And he was like, no. He's like, let's do this. I want to hear what you have to say. And he set his laptop down, and then we started brainstorming, and he had another meeting, and he picked up the phone in the conference room, and I said, do you need to go? And he goes, no, I'm calling my assistant to tell her to push back my next meeting. I want to keep this going. He goes, I don't get a chance to do this very often, and I want to maximize this time. And at the end of that meeting, he was like, can you come back next week and meet with my team? And
That's a great story.
And that was, I even thought for a moment, like, this is going to be a bold move. It's either going to go horribly wrong. Like, he's going to go, yeah, man, we're super not interested. Like, take care. I'm like, okay, I'm walking out now with my tail between the legs. Or I can just kind of call it what it is and be authentic in this moment and go, look, we all have bad days. Like, I'm not going to try to pitch you my great ideas on your bad day. Like, that doesn't work for anybody, you know? So.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. It just, yeah, you just have to kind of be in the moment a little bit, you know, and pay attention to how that other person is, not just what I'm there for and what my agenda is, but, you know, how can I meet that other person where they're at on that day?
Exactly. Is there anybody else God, it's almost 9 o'clock. It's past my bedtime. Just kidding. Is there anybody else who have any questions for Mike at this point? Hi. Do you have a question?
Hey, what's going on, Mike?
How you doing, Nicholas?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Super inspired by your incredible story, first of all.
Thank you.
Of course. No, but I think the main thing for me too, and what I got out of it was you repeatedly were emailing a lot of different people. I remember at one point you were emailing this one individual, you know, once a week. And I was wondering, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but I'm like a fool for instant gratification, where it's like, oh man, you know, if I don't get it within like 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, I'm like, man, it's just not going to happen. Maybe I got to move on, try something else. I'm that type of person that, you know, I'll find somewhere else to get to the goal or the dream that I have. But what kept you going? What was that voice inside of your head saying like, hey, like, I'm going to email them again and again and again?
First of all, I love the artwork behind you, and I'm a huge Sam Cooke fan, so I really love it. Yeah, it's really all of that.
Influences. I'm a recording artist, so. Nice,
amazing. Right, where do you live? Where do you live?
I'm in South Florida, so I live in this town called Boca Raton, Florida. It's like,
of course,
north of Miami.
Nice.
He just graduated from Berkeley. I'm sorry, I'm gonna like.
Berkeley School of Music?
Yeah.
Amazing. What instruments do you play?
So I'm primarily a singer, but I also play piano and a little drums too.
Okay. Well, Matthew is a recording engineer, and he wants to record you. So at some point, you guys need to talk about setting up some studio time. So
let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And Libby's gonna produce the music video.
Yeah, we'll meet in Miami.
I'm down for that.
Yes, I love it.
Good.
Let's see. How do I stay persistent? I'm like you, Nicholas. Like, I want things to happen. Like, the world can't move fast enough.
Like that.
So, yeah. You know what? Since you guys are young, I'm old and married, but since you guys are young, let's put this in dating terms. Like if you find somebody that you're super into and they're like all you can think about, like typically you come off like super clingy and then they're just like, get away from me. But like if you're kind of like dating multiple people, you know, you're like, then you just kind of like, you take your mind off of that one person and go, you know, I'm not saying play the field, but maybe play the field. But you just can't, you have to just kind of keep, if you just have one iron in the fire and you're sitting around all day staring at that one iron in the fire, you're going to drive yourself insane. So what do you use, the dating metaphor or the fishing analogy or the iron in the fire? But I am always connecting, just always connect, always connect. And if there's something that I'm super passionate about, like MP3, yeah, I'm sitting there hitting the refresh button on my inbox until that person, writes me back. If they don't, then I'm just like, oh, I'm going to email them again. I'm going to try to not be a stalker, but I am going to show them that I'm persistent, and I think that there's some magic in persistence. And also,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Debra. Oh, I was going to say, it's important to, with persistence, it's important to give them the benefit of the doubt, meaning that when I was a department head and building a whole team, for CBS, I had people that were persistent with me. And it was either maybe I didn't get back to them because I was super busy, like insanely busy, and I was fielding 300 emails a day, or maybe I just wasn't in a position or a place that I could hire at that time, or maybe there were other circumstances going on, or maybe I was about to leave on vacation and I meant to get back to them. So don't come from a place assuming that they're blowing you off. I typically come from a place assuming that they're just busy doing other things. And so when I write them again, I'm like, hey, hope you're having a good week. Just thought I'd check in. So yeah, go ahead, Debra, sorry.
Yeah, to add to that, Nick and everybody, here's the thing, having been in public relations and marketing for 30 years and having to pitch, the New York Times or Good Morning America or whatever, and I'd write like a pitch or something like that. I'd go, I think the story would be really great. And they'd write back, or they wouldn't write back, to be honest with you. And here clients are paying a lot of money. I'd have to always think, well, if I wrote them again, what added value could I bring to them? So I'm not going to pitch it. Well, did you see the pitch? Did you see the pitch? Did you read the pitch? I'd go, no, I don't know if you read the pitch, but here's another idea that I'm adding to it. And I would do this 3 or 4 or 5 times. And by the 5th, 6th time, either someone would go, Debra, I'm sorry. I didn't answer because it was like, stop, bothering me, or we can't do this right now. Or oftentimes I got to tell you, the 5th one was a charm. You know what? I love that idea you brought to us. Now we'll do the story. Now we'll do the story, because now something resonates. And I'd be watching other programs. I go, the Today shows up, they seem like they're covering this. I'm not seeing it on Good Morning America, and I'd like to bring that person to you. You see, guys, yeah. It's coming. It's like, what value? This value. And, I got to be honest with you, when I had a lot of people working for me at one time, and I would say, did you call Vogue? Or what? I had a lot of fashion clients, and they go, yeah, they didn't answer. I left a message. And I go, well, did you call again if it was the end of the day? And they go, well, no, I left him. I go, you're fired. I was doing like Trump before Trump was doing that. Because it takes 100 calls. This is like actually scientific. It takes 100 calls literally to sometimes make something happen. And if you just have that mindset that I'm going to call and I'm going to call and I'm going to call, I'm going to cast a net, but I'm going to call, and you make a little list. I called this person. They told me to call back Tuesday. You keep moving that needle. It's a numbers game. You reach out to 5 people, you're going to get 5 calls. You reach out to 2, you're going to get 0 calls. It's just, when
I was at CBS, we did the first YouTube integration with a famous YouTuber named Tyler Oakley, and it was around the Grammys. And it was going to be the first kind of network TV / YouTube kind of integration. And we wanted to shoot all the promos at YouTube studios here in LA. And YouTube is owned by Google. And so I got passed up the chain to Google's business affairs and legal team. And Google doesn't give 2 bleeps about CBS network. Like, Google could buy CBS on a Tuesday, like, without blinking. So it took me like 100 calls, and they're like throwing all this red tape at me. Like, well, we don't know. We don't really do that. I'm like, this is happening. This is happening. Like, I will sit here and dial your number and every other person, and we got it done. We got it done, but not because, they just needed some extra inspiration.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you struck on something too. I think it's important because I've met a lot of really talented young writers and storytellers that come to LA, and they'll say, hey, I got this great story, and maybe I'll read it. It is a great story, but it's not right for CBS. And CBS skews older in their audience. Fox skews younger. ABC skews family. NBC is kind of a nice hodgepodge of all of it. So just like the way you would pitch things to magazine, to Vogue, like you kind of have to do your homework of like, I have this idea, who might need or want that idea? And it's an interesting, again, not to go back to the dating metaphor, but it is kind of like that. It's matchmaking that there's no shortage of great ideas in LA. There's a shortage, and this is where the agents and managers get involved, a shortage of taking that great idea and pairing it with the right partner that wants to actually put money behind it and see it come to fruition. So you do have to, Matthew, I'm glad you studied business. That's important, because you have to, if they're the ones funding the creativity, you have to be able to be the creative person to make the cool creative idea, but then take those glasses off and put on your business glasses and go, who would be interested in buying this idea? And how are they going to poke holes in it? So when I go talk to them, I've already thought it through, because then you make it easy for them. And then it's a faster way to get a yes. So, but I feel so heartbroken for so many super talented, creative young people going around LA with really brilliant ideas, but they're just knocking on the wrong doors. It's like, man, if you just go down here and knock on that door, you'll probably be a millionaire by the time you're 25. So like, it's important to have that awareness of who the buyers are.
Oh, that's very well said. Very well said.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else?
I can geek out on this stuff all day.
I know, I could like sit here all night, to be honest with you. And by the way, Libby, how crazy is that you have inhale, exhale, and I have inhale, what do I have? Inhale the future, exhale the past.
I love it.
Oh, I'm going to hire you because we have the same sign. Just kidding. But no, but that's a little unbelievable to be. See, now, honestly, if I was interviewing someone like that, but we had that and I was Zooming with her, that would bring her forward just to me, just saying. Yeah. Is there anybody else that has any questions?
Yeah, Irene. Hey, I love the advice and stories you guys offered, especially the cab one. I'm really bad at networking. I know I shouldn't, like I should try to go for it, but recently I had a payoff where someone contacted me that I gave them my information 3 years ago in a different country. And they are finally in LA and they needed a pianist. And I was like, what's happening right now?
That's
so
amazing.
like, the very few times I've networked and all of a sudden it's paying off a little bit later. So I feel like now in quarantine, I'm trying to, especially with these webinars, to find people that I'm like modeling my career after and want to connect with them. And but before I do that, now that we have time, my question is, what new programs would you suggest mastering? So I do film composition, so I'm really good with Logic and fairly well in Pro Tools in Ableton. But is there something new I should be working on? And I'll typically hire somebody like you because I'm out of the loop a little bit on some of that stuff. But the ones that you just named, I know are the industry standards. I don't know. I don't have anything else to suggest. I think you're working with the industry standards. But since we're talking a little bit about connecting and networking, I love your background. My wife and I just started binge watching The Office. And so what do you like about The Office? Oh my gosh. Everything. I like the spontaneity of it. I know that most of it was improv. And I follow the actors today too. And what else? I just had my Zoom birthday and it was Office themed.
No way.
Yeah. So that's why I have my background. I had a different one with Michael and the, what are they called? The party poppers or.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this. I do like Steve Carell as an actor, but I feel like it's just like a bit much, but we're only on season 3. Do they start bringing other characters?
Is it your first time watching it?
Yes.
I think because of the time we're in right now, politically speaking and everything, that watching The Office for the first time must be absolutely crazy. I'll tell you,
crazy.
When I first watched it, I hated it. That first season, I was like, how do you guys think this is funny? This is absolutely not funny. It's offensive,
That's me.
blah, blah. But season 2, episode 1, the humor just like clicked, and
Yeah.
everything just became more light and comical, and you understand this person is an awful boss, but I don't know, just I
Do
just
you
think
like,
it's really funny.
what inspired us to watch The Office is we binged watched Parks and Rec, which I'd never watched before, and I loved it. Have you watched Parks and Rec?
I have a little bit. I think
Okay.
maybe it's the same Office thing I went through many years ago, where I need to get through a little bit more of it to like it.
Yeah.
But I'm more of an Office, Friends, Brooklyn Nine-Nine
Right.
has been
Oh, okay.
really
Should I watch
on
that
top
next?
of the, yeah.
What
Their
do you
humor
like
is,
about Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
the connections between the what are they? The characters. They keep pairing different characters together, and by now it's like, I don't know what season we're in, 5 or 6. Every character has had a chance to talk to each other, and also the music placement in that show is absolutely spot on. I looked into
Nice.
it.
Is
I
it a
forgot.
music-heavy show?
It's not, no, but like
Okay.
anytime they have, it adds to the comedic effect, and the comedic
Okay.
timing a lot. They choose really good songs. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to point out to everybody and to you, Irene, that the last 4 or 5 minutes, like you started out by saying you're not great at networking, but you came alive. We started talking about The Office and then Parks and Rec and then Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and you literally came alive. And I think that this is a great example of like how to network, and like start with that. Start with talking about like, have you seen any cool shows? And I wanted to kind of go through that a little bit with you because we were almost in a way like rehearsing. Like, you were great. Like, you have no idea how much you just came alive when you were just talking about your shows. And it was so cool because it was such an awesome transition. You started talking about the music cues in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And then now that I know that you're into music, and I'm like, I could literally spend probably the next hour asking you questions about the music and the music cues and how that contributes to the story. And, but what we just did there was almost like a master class in networking. If you were in a, and just, so I just wanted to kind of like dispel any inner voice that you have that you're bad at networking, because I literally could spend the rest of my day shooting the breeze with you about The Office.
And you know what, Mike brings up a good point. I know we got to wrap it up, but you know what? Lose the networking name out of your head and just bring you guys. That's all you need to do, is just bring who each and every one of you are, and don't label yourself or label what you think you need to do. Just be you, and you will all be successful. And I just want to thank Mike tonight as my guest. I could just like sit here for hours, and all of you coming on tonight, and Dan and Rivka and Melanie, for giving me this opportunity to share with all of you a little bit of knowledge, maybe a little bit of insight. And I wish you all the success in the world, because you all guys deserve it. So I want to thank you all.